A $10 deposit is just a hassle for us.
John, the bank clerk, laughed mockingly.
Considering the fees and my work time, it's a loss for our bank. Oh, but I guess poor people wouldn't understand.
I wanted to retort, but in front of my children, I tried to avoid a confrontation. I remained silent, but the procedure didn't progress, and John's taunts only intensified. Maybe it's impossible today. Waiting around felt like a waste of time, but if we couldn't get the paperwork done, there was no point in staying any longer. Just as I turned to leave and was about to take my son Kevin's hand, he tugged on mine instead. I could feel Kevin grip my left hand tightly.
Mom, let me borrow your cell, please.
He then took the cell phone that was sticking out of my pocket. Usually, he's so well behaved that his forceful action left me dumbfounded, and then Kevin made a call to someone. Little did John know what would happen next. Kate, met my husband, Mike, back in middle school. At that time, we were just classmates and didn't really talk much to each other, so my only recollection of him was like, oh, I remember him from the class photos. We got significantly closer after we both grew up and met again at a reunion. The excitement of meeting after so long made everyone let loose, and suddenly, my former classmates started spilling secrets, fueled by alcohol. At first, they shared innocent memories like, I was the one who broke the window back then, or we always failed making treats in home economics class and so we gave them to the guys. However, as the drinking continued, the revelations became more and more outrageous, eventually leading to so-and-so had a crush on so-and-so, spreading gossip even about those who weren't participating. Unfortunately, Mike, who was sipping his drink quietly at the edge, became the target.
He had a crush on Kate, but never talked to her.
Hearing this, I felt good and, on a whim, asked him out. Surprisingly, Mike immediately accepted. We exchanged numbers right there and made plans for a date. Since I was drunk when I unintentionally did that, I intended to break things off. It was terrible. I know that asking someone out while being drunk and then wanting to act like it never happened was just too selfish. But sobering up, the idea of dating someone I hardly knew scared me. When Mike arrived at the meeting place and I told him, he chuckled and asked if I could spend just one day on a pretend date with him. Feeling guilty, I agreed. Turns out, after that date, I continued to go out with Mike. Simply put, I enjoyed his company. As we got to know each other better, the Mike I didn't know well disappeared, and I began to see him as a man. When I shared this with Mike, he hugged me tightly. Even though he had never tried to hold my hand before. Caught off guard by the sudden intimacy, Mike knelt down and said,
I've been waiting for you to feel this way. If you're okay with it, I'd like to date you with marriage in mind.
All I could say was yes. Soon after, we got married and had a child. We named our son Kevin. Mike was inspired by his father, whom he respects, and so we decided on this name. Mike was embarrassed, but I thought it was cool. Then, we found out we were expecting our second child. Having a good husband and blessed with children, I felt that my life was smooth sailing. Now, I live with my 4-year-old son, Kevin, and my 6-month-old daughter, May. Yes, just the 3 of us. My husband, Mike, is sadly no longer with us. He passed away in an accident just before our daughter was born. He was rear-ended on his way home from work. It was a sudden accident, Afterward, he was taken to the hospital, but he passed away before our family could even say goodbye. Losing my husband to such a tragic event, I was devastated. On his days off, he would tirelessly devote himself to our family, never showing signs of work fatigue. Knowing he wasn't one to cut corners at work, I once asked him, "Aren't you overdoing it?" With a big smile, he replied, "Thanks for worrying, but making my beloved family happy is the best way to blow away my tiredness. I know of nothing else that does it better." He wanted to be a good role model for our children. He strived to be a good father. I believe his earnest love was fully felt by Kevin, our only child at the time. I even resented my husband for leaving us with only good memories.
Don't worry, Mom. I'll protect you.
But it was Kevin who said that to me, looking at how I felt. It was one of the few things Mike had managed to teach Kevin while he was alive.
Remember, Kevin, when I'm not around, it's your job to protect Mom.
Thanks to Kevin's encouragement, with a smile just like his father's, I was able to recover. Later, as my pregnancy progressed, I had to be hospitalized. During my hospital stay, Kevin, brought by his grandparents, visited me often, bringing a lot of cheer with his smiles. Thanks to that, I was able to safely give birth to my daughter May. After May's birth, becoming a family of 3, I was apprehensive about the upcoming whirlwind of parenting. Even with Kevin, it had been parenting with Mike's help. However, it wasn't as bad as I feared. Amazingly, my milk came to help.
Kate, you've worked hard giving birth, so take a rest.
She said so while doing the housework, and the kids really took to her. Kevin would often follow her around, calling her grandma, to the point of making me a bit jealous. But during that unstable postpartum period, having some time to myself was a huge relief. Even after Mike passed away, his parents treated not only the children but also me like their own family. Every time I see my in-laws, I deeply feel how much I'm cherished. I'm truly glad to be part of this family. That's something I can truly feel from the bottom of my heart. There was also another person who looked after our family. He's Oliver, Mike's subordinate. Mike often invited him over for dinner after work. He always hesitated, saying, "Oh no, that's too much." But he never failed to go for seconds, which was quite memorable. When we had barbecues on holidays, he would be invited by Mike and would play with Kevin, enjoying their time together. Initially shy, by the end of the barbecue, Kevin would say with a smile, "It was fun, like having 2 dads." After a few more meetings and playtimes, Kevin naturally started calling him Uncle Oliver. After Mike's death, he began taking Kevin to parks and amusement parks on holidays. While he took care of Kevin, I could spend quiet time with newborn May. Above all, I am grateful to Oliver because Kevin always comes back with a big smile saying, "It was so much fun." One day, we were on our way to the bank. It had been put off due to childbirth and parenting, but we needed to set up a new account to receive Mike's inheritance and life insurance. After May turned 6 months old and could hold her head up, I could use a baby carrier. This enabled me to free up one hand to hold Kevin's, increasing our opportunities for outings together. Kevin doesn't suddenly start running. He would walk closely beside me, his serious expression resembling that of a little bodyguard. The bank we were aiming for was a major one, located near our house, where my husband had an account. It was my first time opening an account there, and I decided to go in person out of curiosity and a desire to see it. Despite it being a weekday afternoon, the bank was bustling with people. I was glad I had made an appointment online. However, I had just heaved a sigh of relief when I realized that my outfit was standing out. I was rushed off my feet looking after the kids since morning, ending up in a casual outfit of denim and a t-shirt. Moreover, I was carrying a backpack filled with necessities for Kevin and baby May. Inside the bank, nearly everyone else was dressed formally, and I felt suddenly embarrassed by my lack of makeup and casual look. I wished I had dressed more appropriately. But it was too late to go back, so I just wanted to finish my business and leave. I joined the queue and informed the staff member that I had an appointment. As soon as the male receptionist saw me, he stared at me intently from head to toe.
Please wait in the waiting area. We'll call you by your number.
I was bothered by his snide tone, but no, that couldn't be it. That must be my misunderstanding. The staff member was wearing a name tag that read John. He stood up and went to the counter as soon as my registration was finished, then whispered something to the employee there. I felt uncomfortably scrutinized the whole time, but decided not to dwell on it. To be ready for the kids' bathroom needs, I sat near a restroom along the wall and waited to be called. After a while, I noticed something odd. People who arrived after me were being called before me. Checking my number confirmed it wasn't just my imagination. Maybe they called my number while I took the kids to the bathroom, and I missed it. Being new to this bank, I assumed it was their system.
Number 144. Is number 144 here?
Once again, a later number was called. Apparently, someone didn't show up when their number was called. A staff member emerged from the counter area. That staff searched around and then approached an elderly woman dozing in a chair, assisting her to the counter. They were incredibly kind, and it was heartwarming to watch. No, that's not it. Something's wrong. Am I being deliberately ignored? I thought it was impossible, but given the receptionist's earlier behavior, it doesn't seem entirely out of the question. I adjusted my backpack and took Kevin's hand. I then headed back to the reception. The staff member there had changed to a younger one. Next to his name tag on his chest, there was a plate that read "In training." He must be a new employee. Good, I thought, he might take me seriously. Seeing that there were fewer people around, I asked if my number had been overlooked or if I was being skipped.
Well, we're calling numbers in order.
The young staff member stammered. And then after that, he kept repeating, "We call numbers in order," like a parrot, whenever I asked anything further. Wondering if he thought I was complaining, he seemed to panic, making me feel sorry for him. Not wanting to be too harsh and risk getting dirty looks myself, I decided to step back and return to my original seat on the bench. Waiting wasn't a big deal for me alone, but I had the kids with me. I hadn't brought many diapers for May, not expecting such a long wait. My son was being patient, but I knew his boredom would turn into stress eventually. Perhaps sensing my anxiety, my daughter became fussier, and I waited to be called while soothing her.
Number 102. Is anyone here?
Ultimately, I was called more than 3 hours after my initial arrival. There were hardly any people left in the waiting area, and it seemed I was the last to be called. It was an excessively long wait. Even though I had no other plans besides the bank that day, it was now getting close to dinner time. I needed to hurry. I walked briskly to the counter. To my dismay, it was that rude staff member who was there. His name tag clearly read John. He continued to look down on me with a blatantly condescending gaze.
Huh.
He sighed as soon as I sat down. Drained of the energy to be irritated, I ignored John's sigh and conveyed my need to open an account.
You could have opened an account online, you know. Seriously, coming to our bank with kids in tow is unthinkable. Well, when you're poor, I guess you can afford to mind your time and place, ho.
He said that to me while smirking condescendingly. I wondered why I had to endure such treatment. I didn't even want to continue the conversation. Excuse me, I have another appointment after this. Could we hurry up? That was a lie. I had no other plans but wanted to finish opening the account and leave quickly. I didn't want my son Kevin to witness such adult behavior for too long.
Busy as a bee, I see. Thanks for your hard work, ho.
He lazily spread out the documents. I quickly filled out the necessary information and handed them back.
You'll need to make an initial deposit. Do you have cash on hand?
Such a rude man. His words dripped with condescension. But getting too upset might upset my daughter May again. If that was the case, this staff member would likely become even more aggressive. I needed to stay calm. Is $10 okay? It was embarrassing to say $10 given the previous comments about being poor, but that was all I had. John picked up the bill from the tray, fluttering it with a sneer.
A deposit of just $10 is troublesome for us, you know.
He continued mockingly.
Considering the fees and my work time, this is a loss for our bank. But I guess you wouldn't understand, being poor and all.
I wanted to avoid any confrontation, especially in front of my children. So, I remained silent, listening to John's escalating insults. He ranted about how the initial deposit reflects trust in the bank and how ignorant I was not to know this, eventually sneering as he pointed to the head of household section on the form.
You probably drove your man away with such ignorance, didn't you?
For the first time, I felt more baffled than angry. Strangely, even though Mike was being ridiculed, I felt as if it was all happening to someone else, almost as if I had reached enlightenment. John's words just slid through my mind like a severe case of tinnitus. It seemed impossible to get anything done today. Waiting here was a waste of time if we couldn't complete the process. As I was about to leave with Kevin, he tugged at my hand instead. I could feel the strength in his grip.
Mom, can I borrow your phone, please?
He said that, and then took the cell phone sticking out of my pocket. Usually, he's so well behaved that his sudden assertive action left me stunned. Then, Kevin made a call to someone. The call connected almost instantly.
Grandpa? Hey, can I cancel the $500 million account?
While I was stunned by Kevin's words, John burst into laughter.
Ha, what are you talking about? At your age, you should know how to count money. Poor education must be a thing in a poor family, huh? That's sad.
In contrast to John's mocking laughter, my son smiled cheerfully. Then, looking at me, he said with energy,
I told Grandpa about this guy. He's coming over now.
It seemed Grandpa was already on his way, making it hard to cancel now. John, overhearing our conversation, must have thought it would take a while. He lazily started to speak.
Taking up the time of capable people shows how ignorant you are. That's why you're poor.
I thought to myself, you're the rude one, but it was clear that John was beyond reason. I gave up trying to converse with him and just waited. A few minutes later, the buzz among the staff signaled the arrival of Grandpa, my Phil. He was dressed sharply in a navy blue suit, but his slightly disheveled hair suggested he had rushed over. Upon seeing him approach, John froze.
You should have called me if you were coming.
My Phil said that nonchalantly while petting Kevin's head. I thought it would just be a quick account setup and I didn't want to bother you. He nodded in satisfaction. He was smiling constantly, but his eyes were not as he looked at John.
What?
Finally reacting, John jumped up from his chair, retreating while trying to hide his twisted smile with his hand.
Mr. President, why are you here?
My Phil, also Kevin's grandfather, was the bank president. Of course, it seemed John recognized the face of the head of his workplace right away as he turned pale. My husband had also worked at this bank. Phil was stricter in business than my husband, so my husband had used no connections for his job entry. He focused on gaining field experience, but soon there were suggestions to promote him to become an executive due to his competence, despite his youth. Then came the tragic accident. His path to climbing the corporate ladder was cut short. The $500 million mentioned by Kevin was the savings Mike had accumulated before our marriage.
So, John, is what my grandson said true?
John, flustered, replied, "No, that's not exactly." It was clear from his demeanor that Kevin's words were true. With John's eyes darting back and forth, my Phil leaned over the counter and said in a stern voice,
I don't recall making this bank one that judges customers by their appearance.
Afterward, when my Phil explained to John that I was his daughter-in-law, he became terribly flustered and apologized profusely.
It's not about special treatment for family. Judging by appearance and assumptions is unacceptable. Have some shame.
It was the first time I saw my always amiable Phil angry, and it carried the weight befitting a bank president. A man who seemed to be John's supervisor came rushing, apologizing profusely, but at my FIL's command of "take him away," he was quickly led to the back. Returning to his usual cheerful demeanor, my Phil relayed a message to a nearby staff member, then told me to sit at the counter and wait before leaving the bank. He must have carved out time from his busy schedule for this. As I waited as instructed, a replacement staff member came to assist me promptly. That was Oliver, my husband's former colleague.
I apologize for John's behavior. I'll be handling your case, so please feel free to ask anything.
He proceeded with the process smoothly, and the account was opened without further issues.
Uncle Oliver, let's play again soon.
Kevin, happy to see Oliver, waved goodbye until we could no longer see each other. Watching this, my accumulated negative feelings from today's events seemed to vanish, and by the time I left the bank, I was smiling. I realized again what my husband used to say, "Nothing makes me happier than seeing our child happy." Later, we visited my in-laws to express our gratitude. But as soon as my Phil saw me at the door, he apologized before I could even say thank you.
I'm sorry. As the bank president, I share responsibility for my employees' rude actions. I sincerely apologize.
I felt apologetic instead because he had helped us this time. When I told him that he didn't need to apologize, he knelt to be eye to eye with Kevin and took his hand.
Kevin, thank you for protecting Kate, my son's precious wife. I'm truly grateful.
Looking directly into my FIL's serious eyes, Kevin, with an equally earnest expression, said,
"It's a promise I made with Dad."
He stated it clearly. Upon hearing this, my Phil momentarily looked surprised, but then just said, "I see," and affectionately ruffled Kevin's hair. Returning from my in-laws' house, I was informed about John. My Phil had intended to bring it up at lunch, but my mother-in-law prevented the conversation, fearing it would spoil the meal. Seeing their earnestness and thoughtful care, I wondered if this is how my husband would have been if he were alive, which brought tears to my eyes. Apparently, John had received complaints about his customer service attitude even before he met me. The branch manager had repeatedly attempted to guide him, but without any improvement. It seemed they were struggling. However, being directly reprimanded by the bank president seemed to have impacted John. He has become much quieter now. He was removed from counter duties and reassigned to menial tasks. My Phil expressed his frustration of wanting to fire John but couldn't due to employment rules. However, I was content knowing I wouldn't have to encounter him again. On another day, Oliver came to visit. Despite it being his day off, he came because he remembered something Kevin had said when leaving. Watching them play while holding May, I noticed Kevin was still visibly happy. By evening, Kevin, tired from playing, had fallen asleep. Oliver cleaned the soccer ball they had been playing with before placing it beside Kevin.
Since Kevin enjoyed it, it was worth the visit. Thank you.
I was the one who was thankful, really. Kevin, usually appearing tense, returned to his childlike demeanor when playing with Oliver. As a mother, I felt I had deprived Kevin of his childhood. It's a sad thing to admit. But with Oliver, Kevin could be a child again, and I am deeply grateful for that. When I shared these thoughts, Oliver, with his always kind smile, said this:
Ma'am, you are doing your best. That's why Kevin is imitating you. But if you want to ease his burden, please rely on me. I can't replace his father, but I'll surely be a support.
I know I will continue to rely on his kind and strong spirit. After my husband's death, it felt like I was being swallowed by a gaping hole in my heart. However, the connections with people that Mike, who should have been gone, had left behind, ended up saving me. Mel, Phil, Oliver, and especially Kevin and May pulled me through. They are all such wonderful people, more than I deserve. I will live my life being supported by them. I wonder how Mike, watching from heaven, feels about me always needing help. Would he be angry at my inadequacy? Or just shake his head in pity? I can't imagine either.
Oh well.
Even though Mike is strict at work, he's soft when it comes to family matters, always giving me a kind and dependable smile. I can only picture him like that. Will Kevin perhaps smile like that one day as well? I believe he will. Kevin takes after Mike. But as a mother, I hope that resemblance is directed towards the people he cherishes. I want him to show me his weaker side more. Having shown my vulnerabilities and been helped so much, I can't help but feel it's too late to ask, yet I still wish for him to remain a child. my beloved husband and my beloved son, Kevin. To prevent the promise they made from becoming a curse, I need to be stronger. There's no husband here to protect me and the kids anymore. It's up to me to protect them. And for that, I'm ready to accept any help I can get. Yes, I've made this strong resolve.